What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, we have 72 tips I wish I knew before visiting Amsterdam, Netherlands. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to subscribe, give a video a thumbs up. Also, if you like to support the channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit the join button to receive your exclusive benefits. Let's dive in.
Full transparency, I hated Amsterdam after my first trip, but now it's my favorite city in the entire world, and I realized that I just made so many mistakes during my first visit. I'm gonna share everything that I wish I would have known. That way you can love Amsterdam as much as I can. We're gonna cover a lot in this video. We're gonna talk about some cultural things you wanna know, money saving tips, how to avoid those tourist traps, which areas of town to hang out, things that are a little bit overrated and underrated, best day trips, where you might wanna base yourself. Like, this video is just packed. I promise that it's gonna give you a really good opportunity to just understand the city in the way that most people don't ever have the opportunity to do. First thing that I want to touch on are some cultural things that are really important to note. This is an incredibly walkable city, but the experience fundamentally changes once you hop on a bike. Bikes rule this city. It's almost like bikes get first priority, then walkers, then cars. It really is such a special part of the culture, but
That's pretty cool.
Intimidating for tourists, and there's a couple things that you're gonna wanna know. First is that, yes, you can absolutely rent a bike, and I'll give you some tips on that in a minute, but if you do, recognize that locals are using this as a main form of transportation. So this isn't Disneyland where you're just saying, hey, everything is magical and wonderful and I can just be oblivious to things. No,
Got you.
Make sure that you understand the rules of the road. Wherever you rent your bike from, listen to them when they give the instructions, because you can do a lot of damage if you're not paying attention. Things move quickly and the locals are not gonna slow down. And I've seen quite a few accidents with tourists on bikes, and I just don't want that to be you. So just be mindful, and if you are that not so confident rider, maybe rent the bike and go to a park where things are a little bit more open, and I'll show you where some of those are in a minute. But if you do want to rent a bike, the best way that you can do that is just Google fietswinkel. It's the way that you search bicycle shop in Dutch, and they're gonna be all over the city. You can rent them for a day, a little bit longer, but that's gonna be the term that you're gonna wanna search for online to find those best spots. Even if you're not on the bike, it's really important to just be careful when you're walking, because when you're a tourist and you don't
I feel like Amsterdam and the Netherlands is just really cool in general, because like it's a country where bikes take priority, then walking, then cars, and you don't see that order priority in many countries. And that's just a cool way to get around. But yeah, I feel like if you're a tourist going over, you definitely, if you gonna get a bike, you better figure out how to ride with the locals, because don't be in their way. Just thinking that you at Disneyland, just don't do that.
It's just how quickly things move, and everything around you is so beautiful and just picturesque, and you're looking at everything. It's really easy to accidentally step into the road and get hit by a biker. My mom made that mistake, stepped into the road, and she actually got hit by a car. So please do not be my mom, and she was totally okay. But please be safe out there and enjoy the city. When you do get in at the airport, you're probably wondering, hey, what's the best way to get downtown from the airport? A lot of tourists make the mistake of doing a taxi or Uber, and you're gonna pay a hefty premium for doing that. The train is a breeze. It is like 15-20 minutes into the city max, and it's super easy to just buy the tickets right when you get into the airport. This is me buying the tickets. You can see it's just a couple clicks of a button. They make it super simple, and it's like $5 or $6, so I highly recommend using that to get to and from the airport if you're looking to save money. But another mistake that a lot of tourists make is they buy that train ticket, they scan in, but then they throw that ticket away. Make sure that you hang on to it, because when you get to Central Station, you do need that same ticket to scan out. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the gates to open. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's say you just took that train.
That would be absolutely awful. To throw that away and find out that you need to get
airport to Central Station, and it's a rainy day in Amsterdam, because those happen, and you decide, hey, I want to take public transit to not get rained on with all my stuff. You have lots of options. The metro here are great, and the trolleys super easy, but the most important thing to note here is that you can just tap in with your phone or your credit card. You don't actually need to buy any tickets in advance. I know that was a lot of information on public transit, but I saved the best for last, which is the ferry. if you are in one of those areas that is a little bit more affordable for accommodation, which we'll get to in a bit, there are ferries and they're completely free. You just hop right on, hop off. You'll be amongst the locals. You can bring your bikes and you'll see a lot of locals doing that. Now, if you're wondering, hey, because the ferries are free, does that mean I shouldn't pay for a canal experience? Actually, the canals are completely separate from where the ferries are going to operate. And I would recommend getting out on the water on the canals. It really is just a very unique and special way of seeing the city, but I do have some money saving tips here. You can't always just take one of those main like tour operators. They're all over the city and you are going to pay a certain price per person. And there's nothing wrong with those experiences. Do note that you're going to be packed with a lot of people. Totally fine if that's what you're looking for, but if you are wanting another way to save a little bit of money, there's a company called Mokum Boat, and I'm in no way, shape, or form affiliated with this group, but they allow you to just rent boats on your own. And you don't have to have a boating license. The boats are super easy to control. It's all like electric. And you can take a group out there. I think we rented for like 2 hours and it was $100. So that ended up saving our group a lot of money compared to taking one of those big tour groups where we would have paid per head. And it meant that we had the freedom to explore the canals at our own rate. Probably recommend checking them out. But let's talk about some of the tourist traps.
That's so freaking cool. I didn't know you could rent a boat for 2 hours. Don't need a boating license or anything. You can just, that'd be so freaking fun.
Really just an area of town where tourists just make a lot of mistakes because they just don't know any better. And I fell for these mistakes myself. So if you look at a map of Amsterdam, I like to start by saying this is where Central Station is. And the reason that most tourists fall for this trap is you'll notice Central Station leads you straight into this area. It's where a lot of the shopping is going to be. It's where the red light district is going to be. Basically think of it as the area where not many locals are ever going to be going down there unless they have to, which means things are going to be really overpriced. There's going to be people looking to take advantage of tourists, and it's not going to give you that local, authentic, charming Amsterdam experience that so many people want. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend any time in that area. There are quite a few tourist attractions and places that you will likely want to see in there, and I don't want to discourage you from doing that. Just have the context that that is the area where you are most likely to be taken advantage of as a tourist. Think of these 4 canal rings being 1, 2, 3, and 4. The further out you get, meaning the higher the number of the canal, the more authentic and local of an experience you're gonna have in Amsterdam. So do yourself a favor and see what you need to see in that center area, but then break out to explore the real Amsterdam. Now let's talk about a couple things that catch tourists off guard a little bit in Amsterdam. The first is that Dutch service is really direct. It is not rude. A lot of people mistake it and be like, ooh, are people being rude to me? No, that's just the way that the Dutch people are, is they're very direct communicators, so don't feel offended when you experience that direct communication. Another thing that can definitely catch people off guard is they'll look up coffee shops and they'll follow their maps to a coffee shop, which in Amsterdam is not exclusively selling coffee. In fact, they're selling something else primarily, which is that green substance that is only legal. Actually, it's not legal. It is.
We know what they selling over in Amsterdam. What I think you got to go to the cafes, and that's where what we think of coffee shops. That's where you're gonna get them coffee shops selling something else for people to enjoy their day, to take the stresses of life away. You feel me?
Tolerated here in Amsterdam, so just keep that in mind. Another thing that's just really important to note about Amsterdam is that this is a stroll city. It's best admired not jumping from place to place, but just saying, hey, I'm gonna wander and walk the streets. But a mistake that a lot of tourists make is they say, hey, I'm gonna walk around in the daytime, and they poop themselves out by the night. That's a huge mistake, because this is one of those cities that is just has a special type of charm that can only be experienced at night, and in like what I call like that blue hour. Especially in the summer, the sun goes down so late here. It's just so quiet and peaceful. So definitely make sure that you save some energy and schedule some time to just wander the streets at night. It's a very safe place to be, especially again, when you push further out of those canals. And one of the really unique things here in Amsterdam are the brown cafes. And think of that basically as a pub. They're just magical. They have like this special type of feel, and even if you're not a drinker, you don't have to ever step foot into one of these. They almost like spill over into the streets. It's something that's really interesting to see. Two other really important things to note when you're walking around at night is, one, if you are a tourist, please keep the voice down. And I'm specifically talking to my own people, which are the Americans and the UK folks, because we typically have the biggest problem with it, but it really is that peaceful environment. And I know that the neighborhoods and just the beautiful charm is so fun and addictive to walk through, but just be mindful of the people who are actually living there. Another piece of the culture that is just so special is if you're fortunate enough to visit in the summer, take note of sometimes you'll see backpacks hanging out on flagpoles or just outside the windows. What that means is that that household has somebody who just graduated, likely high school. This is a culture that really values education.
I love that.
Way of celebrating the young people who are just taking that next step in their education journey. So just appreciate that. It's kind of cool, something that you won't see anywhere else in the world that I've found thus far. But
no, that tradition is like really dope, bro. That put a smile on my face because I really rock with that. Also, think it's cool that walking through the city, you get a great vibe during the day, and then you get a different kind of vibe that you still need to experience at nighttime. That's also a really dope thing about the city.
This one really is important for tourists, and even if you are visiting in the summer, pack some warm clothes. People don't realize just how far north Amsterdam is, and the climate can be pretty chilly even in the summer. So even on a nice day, just make sure that you always have a long sleeve or pullover to just warm yourself up, because once that sun goes down, it really can get chilly. And also be prepared for rain. It can rain kind of at any time. I've been gotten a lot of rainstorms, so if there is a place to bring a rain jacket or just an umbrella, this is probably a good spot to do that, so just be prepared for that rain. But one other piece that is just, again, really special with the culture that is important to recognize when you're wandering is that this culture really revolves around art and education and just expression. You'll find that there are very few things that are uniform in Amsterdam. Whether that's movie theaters, which I know as a tourist, you're probably not going to step foot into a movie theater, but there are all kinds of just interesting and unique venues, whether it be an actual movie theater, a regular theater, art galleries, community spaces, and we'll touch on some of these in a minute, but take some time to appreciate those things when you're walking through. But let's talk about where you might want to stay in town and some really important tips around this. So first and most important thing is stay where you can afford. Accommodation is almost always going to be your biggest expense in Amsterdam. It's just outrageously expensive, so be prepared for that. Now, in terms of the areas that I'd avoid, the biggest one is just that central area, everything that's highlighted right here. Again, you're in that touristy trap area, you're going to have high prices. I just really wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
I get that.
The areas that you might find some cheaper options are one where the ferries are going to give you access to just north of town. Right here, there are some good deals to be had, and also if you push out past that fourth canal and even past, like, I want to call this a fifth canal, but it's not truly a part of the ring, anything in these highlighted areas, you also might find some better deals. Okay. If you're really that budget traveler and you're saying, man, I just cannot afford these Amsterdam prices, I totally feel that. My best recommendation is don't be afraid to stay in another town outside of Amsterdam. There are a few that we'll touch on, like Zandam and Haarlem, these places that are a little bit more Dutch. You're not going to have nearly as many tourists, but they're incredibly well connected, and you can get into the city center in about 15 to 30 minutes, depending which town you look at, and accommodation is going to be far cheaper in those. Now, another thing is
then I would definitely go to one of the surrounding towns. It sounds a lot cheaper, and then you don't have to deal with all the tourists traps, and you don't have to deal with all the people. You can go head into the city center, enjoy it. You deal with all that during the day, enjoy it, and then you head back home to quiet, more peaceful. I rock with the and cheaper.
I find that hotels tend to be a little bit more expensive than Airbnbs. And I do find that the Airbnbs in Amsterdam provide some of those unique experiences, especially if you can be on a houseboat. But I do want to talk about a couple things that a lot of tourists fall for, a couple mistakes when booking Airbnbs. The first is that you definitely want to ask, hey, what's the stair situation? A lot of these old Dutch buildings, they have really narrow, really steep staircases, and they almost never have an elevator. So a lot of tourists are going to have to carry bags up really narrow, tight, stairwells. That can be a disaster, especially if somebody's a little bit older and doesn't have full mobility. So just be sure to ask that before booking accommodation. And also, if you're going in the summer and you realize, hey, there's a heat wave coming through Amsterdam, note that
Oh,
most of the buildings do not have air conditioning. So if you are going during one of those heat waves, so just be sure to ask about that and keep that in mind. Now, I'll touch on some of those just
oh,
can't miss places and some tips in just a second, but I realize one pain point for travelers, or at least for me, has been coming from America. When you come over to Amsterdam, you don't have regular cell data, which means it's really hard to navigate the streets.
hmm.
Well, luckily I found a fix, and it's something called an eSIM, and I use this company called Airlo. And what makes Airlo so
I'm gonna
great is
skip this
it's just an app on your
sponsor.
phone. So you can download it, buy data before your trip. If you run out, you can add more, so you don't need to over useful on your trip. But let's talk about some of those just can't miss places, the spots that are just the best, and a lot of these you'll know about. One is the Rijksmuseum, and a lot of people wonder, like, hey, is the Rijksmuseum worth visiting? I'd say yes. If there's one museum in Amsterdam that I'd say this is the one you got to go to, it's the
I respect
Rijksmuseum.
that.
It really is special, and I'd allocate at least a couple of hours in the museum, but also note that there's a beautiful park outside, you have gardens, like it's just a wonderful experience and it's well worth your time. Now, another one that people ask quite a bit about is the Van Gogh Museum, and it is a great museum. You really do have to be a Van Gogh
Oh,
lover because it's pretty much exclusively
I
him.
better
Hopefully you
go.
could tell that by the
Love
name, but one really important thing with both the Van Gogh and Rijksmuseum is that if you're going in the summers, it is really, really important to book your tickets in advance. Both of those
Mm,
museums sell out quickly, so do
right?
yourself a favor and go on theirs websites. I'll put the links in the description. Another one that people ask about all the time is the Anne Frank House, and this is another one you
Mm.
need your tickets in advance. They release their tickets 6 weeks in advance
Oh,
on
wow.
Tuesday mornings. Do not think that you're going to show up like the day of or even week of and get tickets to the Anne Frank House. You really do need to be on top of your game if you want that experience. One museum that you don't need to book in advance at all, and I think is actually kind of underrated, is the Houseboat Museum. It's really, really tiny. It's
Oh,
just a houseboat, and it's kind of staged to show you what it would have been like for people living on it back
oh,
in the day. It
that's
takes all
pretty
of like 5 or
cool.
10 minutes to walk through, and is a pretty worthwhile one, especially if you've never been on a houseboat. So I would recommend that. Now, if you're short on time and you
That's
don't really
pretty
want to
cool. It
give
looks like there's like plenty places for people to go and visit, and just make sure you booking your tickets off ahead of time if they need to be booked ahead of time. Don't get caught slipping. But I'm sure there's plenty of free places as well. You can also stroll through the city, but it just sounds like there's a lot to do in Amsterdam and a lot to do in the Netherlands in general.
the Rijksmuseum in Van Gogh or you couldn't get tickets, I'd still recommend going to the Rijksmuseum for the tunnel. The tunnel that cuts
Mm.
through and connects it to the park is just, it's a magical spot. One, the
Oh,
architecture is beautiful, but two, there are musicians, just street performers who are performing
dang.
there at pretty much all hours of the day, and they are fantastic. It can just be a really magical moment.
That's
A
so
tip
awesome.
around this is keep in mind my tip from before of be careful. Do not block the bike lanes. There's nothing that ruins the
Mm.
performance more than so just keep that in mind. Another pretty underrated spot in Amsterdam, which took me months to ever get over there, is the zoo. And I didn't ever think I'd be
Mm.
recommending the zoo, but they really managed to do this zoo pretty well. And if you have little ones, it's a great experience.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like a theme park. It more feels like you're truly entering the habitat. And it's
That's
just a
pretty
special
cool.
place. You can save $3 by booking your ticket online rather than at the actual ticket office. But let's talk about a couple of my favorite areas and just favorite ways to enjoy Amsterdam, and that is the parks. You've probably heard of Vondelpark. That is the big famous one. Think of it as like the Central Park of Amsterdam. It really is a special place. Take a bike ride through there, walk, just enjoy, lay in the grass. It's a spectacular place to be, and I'd highly recommend it. It's probably the first priority in terms of parks. But one that often gets overlooked by tourists is Wester Park. It's away from where most of the tourists end up hanging out, so it's a little bit more local. An equally as beautiful park, and I really love hanging out there, but they have one of the coolest things attached or built within it, which is a garden allotment. It's basically
Oh,
this neighborhood where people are on wait lists and basically live in these little
that
tiny homes with the sole intent and purpose of growing things. They
that's
live
so
there for
dope.
like a very small rate, I think. I think it's like government sponsored, and I mean,
Oh,
just wonderful gardens. It's picturesque. It's like a fairy tale. It is
dang.
truly just incredible. It is well worth seeing, especially in the summer. And speaking of gardens and parks, there is a spot kind of in the
That's insanely cool. That shout out to the Netherlands government. That's insanely
Actual
cool.
central area where all the tourists hang out called Bijenhof. And it's this hidden little courtyard that has some really interesting historical context. I won't spoil it for you, so go there if you're in that area of town. It's a quick walkthrough and there will be a lot of tourists, but it is a pretty special place to explore in Amsterdam. But let's talk about my personal favorite, which is the food. And oh boy, do I have some food recommendations for you. What makes
Talk to me.
Amsterdam so special from a food standpoint is one, it really is an international cuisine. Like, the Indonesian influence is fascinating to learn about, but they really just seem to nail comfort food. Everything seems to be in that category, like the bitterbalm, which is a bar food, or the stroopwafel, which you've probably heard of.
I
Apple
have.
pie seems to be popular. Pastries are so good here. Like,
Oh my
everything is really
god,
comforting,
it looks amazing.
minus the herring sandwiches. Those not so comforting, but I've tried over 100 places in Amsterdam. I'm going to give you a few of the highlights real quick, but I
Let's
do
do it.
have all my top recommendations in a downloadable guide. It's completely free and it has basically all the other information from this video, so feel free to grab that if you want, and I hope it's useful for you all. But the first category that I want to talk about are like cafes and coffee. The top one is Louf. Louf is just... those are my people. I love that
Those
place.
are my
Louf is
people.
just everything that I'm looking for. It's really trendy, it's comfortable,
Oh my
it's subtle,
God.
but done just really well. I love the staff. The staff members are awesome. If you do make it over, say hello to Lydia or Q for me. They're two of my personal favorites. It's just special, and I'm so glad to see that they're doing well. They just opened 2 new locations, so definitely make sure you get over to Louf. If you're looking for more specialty coffee,
Jeez, all the pastries look absolutely phenomenal. Like they just took my hunger to another level. I was already hungry, but now it's risen to another level after seeing those
really
pastries.
enjoyed Back to Black. It's kind of this coffee shop that is like a house. It's really cozy
Oh,
atmosphere, very different than something like Louf, but is also well worth your time. They have a cafe cat, and who doesn't love those? You're not going to go wrong there. And if you're looking for something a little bit more unique, there's a place called
stupid good
Accommodation,
banana
which is
bread.
Greek style coffee, but what's really impressive here is these guys are pumping out banana bread, toasted banana bread.
Oh,
that
that
has no
looks
business being as good
amazing.
as it is. Like, comfort food, oh my god, it is fantastic. Let's talk about some of the best sweets, because again, that comfort food, they know what they're doing. Top option, which you probably have heard of, is Van Staple. These are cookies. They literally have a single product. It is a chocolate cookie. And it is unbelievable. It's the best cookie I've had anywhere, and I eat a lot of cookies. You guys don't even know how lucky you are. For those who have visited Amsterdam in the past, you've probably had to wait in the lines hours long at times. They just upgraded it to like a big new shop where the lines fly through, and it is now in that central kind of touristy part. Not as charming as it used to be, but you do
Hours
got to get over there and
long?
try that cookie. If you're looking for a great gelato place, you can't go wrong with Massimo. It is further out, kind of in a local area of town. Always a line, great gelato, great atmosphere. It's just everything you could want in a gelato spot. And of course, you're gonna have to try a stroopwafel.
For
A lot
sure.
of people online will tell you that Rudy's over in the Albert Cup Market is the best. I kind of disagree with that. I actually think there's a spot called Hans Eggstorf that feels kind of more touristy, but I actually think the stroopwafels just taste a little bit better. They are a little bit more expensive, but it's a charming experience. It's a unique experience, and it's well worth your time. You can't go wrong there. But let's talk about a couple of the actual restaurants that I would recommend. My top choice in all of Amsterdam is a spot called Café de Klaus. This place kind of has that brown cafe bar atmosphere, run exclusively by Dutch people who are very direct. But the ribs here are insane. Dry rub, which I know isn't everybody's style, but they are worth trying. They are exceptional. They also do not take
looks
reservations.
amazing.
There will always be a line the later it gets, so I'd recommend getting there early because it is well worth it.
Jeez Louise, bro, I can't look at these restaurants and suites and cafes. I can't do it anymore, my guy. It's killing me.
Looking for kind of a
It's
healthier option,
killing
there's a spot
me.
called Uncommon, which basically is like the restaurant version of Louf in a sense, because it's that trendy young people vibe, really unique dishes, all really healthy and just well done and well executed. Great spot for a brunch or lunch. If you're looking for something with a little bit more flavor, because I know some people say some Dutch foods are a little bit bland, there's a spot called Rue d'Alger, and I might be botching that pronunciation, but this is Algerian food, and they do both sit in and take away. Awesome staff, fresh ingredients, wonderful
That
flavors. Like,
sounds
it is
nice.
a
Look
great
at
spot,
that.
and it's just wonderful food. You can't go wrong. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit lighter and over in that museum district, there's a place called Rainbows. And I have spent so much money at this place. If you're into
Rainbows.
smoothie bowls and acai bowls, this place does them really well. A
Oh
really artistic
wow.
way. Again, awesome staff. You can't really go wrong.
Yo.
Now, we're going to talk about some of the best day trips in just a second, but I want to touch on a few of the markets that you should be aware of and a few that I think are maybe a little bit overrated that a lot of people get told to go to. So the first one is the most famous, and it's the Albert Type Market. It is historic. It is really old, and have the context that not everything there is for locals, and it's not a completely authentic local experience. It's still something to see, but it's not my favorite in town.
Okay.
Another one is Food Holland in D Holland, which is an old converted like train station, and they've got like a movie theater in there. They do like the market. They've got like this food hall area. Some of the food in there is decent. It's not going to be your top tier options. Those sorts of spots rarely are, but it is a cool thing to see. One that I feel like is completely overrated, in all honesty, is the flower market. And most guides online will be like, yeah, you gotta go check out the flower market. It's in that central part of Amsterdam. It's basically just tourist. A lot of the flowers aren't even real. Like there's a lot of just fake stuff. I don't want to discourage you from seeing it, but don't have those sky high expectations. I feel like a lot of tourists go there and just don't end up totally loving the experience. So you're probably asking yourself, well, hey, what the heck do you put?
I love that he giving you like, this is where you should go, this is where you shouldn't go. You're not gonna enjoy these places. Don't get your hopes up for these places. Even though a lot of people say this, my opinion is this.
Top of your list. I'd probably say Noordermarkt is one of the best markets in town. You're gonna have things from like antiques and flea market style to also just really good quality organic food options. So it happens on Mondays and Saturdays, and I don't know, I just feel like it's a pretty small market that's manageable. It's in an area of town that's pretty accessible for most tourists, and I've always really enjoyed it. Another one that's really close by is Lindenmarkt, and this is just on one of those really long streets in that popular neighborhood called Jordan. It's really decent. I mean, there are good food options. Again, you have kind of a picturesque feel.
So good.
You definitely
Oh
have
my
some
gosh.
locals. There will be plenty
That
of
looks
tourists as well,
amazing.
but I don't think it feels as touristy as some of the others. And one that is only happens once a month and is on that north side where you're going to have to take the ferry to is the IJ Holland Flea Market. Now, this market is massive.
Oh my.
If you're somebody who really loves thrifting and really wants an experience, take a look and see if this is happening when you're in town. Like I said, it's once a month, but you even have to pay to get into that market. And it is one where there are going to be a lot of locals. Yes, some tourists will go check it out, but it is just really different and quite impressive. So I don't know, I did enjoy checking that one out as well. But let's talk about day trips, because I do think there are some that are well worth your time, but there are also some that are a bit overrated and one that I think is quite underrated. So the first and probably most popular is Zonzeshans. This is only like 15 minutes outside of Amsterdam, and it's wonderful. It's almost better to think of it as an open air museum. It's kind of like they've just preserved this specific neighborhood from way back in time, where you get to see how life would have used to look like. You see all of the old buildings and kind of what purposes they served. You have the beautiful farms. You get to interact with a few animals if you want. The windmills, of course, are spectacular. Like, it's just really beautiful and scenic. But a tip around this is, if you do get out there, which is well worth your time, go as early in the morning as you possibly can. The reason being, this is not a hidden gem. A lot of tourists know about it, and it can be a not so enjoyable experience when you're just fighting the swarms of people.
Yeah.
And everybody typically shows up between like noon and 2 p.m. So try to be there on the front end. If you can get there early, it's really going to enhance the experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be awful to. I'm not big around. Like, I'm not great around too many people. I get overwhelmed. So I definitely would want to go earlier when there's less people.
Now,
That's
one
gonna be
spot that
allowed.
a lot of people try to do along with Zonzeshans is Zaandam. Zaandam is a little bit overrated in my mind. I think a lot of social media influencers like to talk about this place because it is picturesque.
Wow.
Really only one building. It looks really cool, so I think everybody just pounds and pounds on that point. But overall, I think there are places where you could better spend your time and get a better sense of Dutch culture. We're going to touch on some of those places. So go see it if you want, but do note that there is a little bit left to be desired in my mind. Now, an alternative that is just as close that I think a lot of tourists just completely skip over is Het Amsterdam Bos, which is basically this little forest. This is not a city, this is a very different type
Dang.
of day trip. But if you do have a bike, you can just bike there. It's going to take you 25, 30
Wow.
minutes, and it is this gorgeous forest
That
that
is
just feels like it puts
beautiful.
you out in the countryside. You interact with no tourists. It's a great
That
place
is
for a picnic and just
gorgeous.
to explore. It really is a special place, and again, I think more tourists, hopefully in the future, will recognize that it is well worth your time. But if you're looking for some of those larger cities or larger towns to visit, there are a few that are definitely popular, and I can't cover them all, so I'll just go over a few highlights. One of the best is Haarlem, and Haarlem is kind of that just picturesque Dutch town. It's only about 15, 20 minutes away from Amsterdam, and it's actually one of those great options if you're looking for the cheaper accommodation and staying outside of Amsterdam. Because of its proximity, this is a great spot. It's super cute, very charming, but you just won't be fighting the same type of tourists as you will in Amsterdam, so Haarlem is definitely worth your time. Now, if you're wanting a little bit bigger than that, you have a few options. One, The Hague. The Hague is a big city and
Oh
it is
my, look at the
spectacular. They have
building.
some just gorgeous gardens and forests of their own. You've got a lot of the government buildings
Oh,
there. It is just a special place, and you could
see.
honestly spend a couple days exploring The Hague, but it does make for a wonderful day trip as well. Now, if you're not wanting that big and you are wanting something that is a little bit smaller and more charming, Utrecht is a great option.
Mm,
Utrecht actually feels the most like Amsterdam because of the
yeah.
way that they have their canals constructed. It's
I've
also
heard
just
lots of great things about Utrecht being an absolutely dope city.
very charming.
The
There's a
Hague
lot
as
of young
well. I
energy
would
there.
visit
It
The
is a
Hague.
university town, and again, it's a wonderful spot to spend some time. It doesn't take too long. It's only about 40 minutes outside of Amsterdam, so another very doable day trip. And if you're wanting something that doesn't feel as historical Dutch and is kind of a new Dutch era, Rotterdam really is a unique city. What makes it unique is it was actually destroyed back in the World Wars, and now they've rebuilt, and it's completely modern, very contemporary, just fascinating architecture all over. Just completely different experience than anywhere else that you'll find in the Netherlands. So it can be an equally as cool day trip. And there are so many more. The key takeaway is that there are tons of day trips that you can do from
Yeah.
Amsterdam. The entire country is just so well connected and really does lend itself well to those who want to take day trips. But I hope all this made sense. I know we covered a lot, and if you want to know just my unfiltered thoughts of all the time that I've spent in Amsterdam, you can watch this video right here. If you have comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Thank you for watching all the way here, and I hope that you learn to love Amsterdam as much as I have. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Definitely a great video. Shout out to my guy for taking the time to make it and give us all of those tips. But that is all we have for this one. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see y'all next time.